And the elephant in the room is that my understanding was Scott Stringer was considered to be the leftiest candidate that was likely to win. And now what we haven't talked about in this podcast is the recent, sexual assault allegations against him, which, like many of these allegations, are he said, she said situation that is currently being investigated, but that limbo leaves the left without a lot of places to go. And the Sunrise Movement, WFP, and others have rescinded their endorsements of Scott Stringer. Whether or not some people are arguing it's been done prematurely, especially in the wake of what happened with in Massachusetts, Alex Morse.
Yeah.
But that's a hard road to toe, given that I think everyone would agree that you would hate to continue to back Stringer and find the claims to be validated down the line.
No, it's not good.
It's definitely, it raises a lot of really big issues that I do think people in politics and people on the left have to reckon with, to be quite frank. If you look at the situation with Andrew Cuomo, he's been accused by, I think at this point, a dozen different women of either sexual harassment or like a hostile work environment. He also has a concurrent nursing home scandal. He's getting a federal investigation, AG's investigation. I think you can credibly call for Andrew Cuomo to resign, and many people have. And I thought DSA and Zohran put out a pretty nuanced statement about abuse of power, lying to the state legislature, his horrible COVID response, right? There's a lot to work with. Mm-hmm. The Stringer situation, it's different, right? You have an allegation that is quite severe, if indeed it happened, if you take her word for it. It's also one allegation with no track record in terms of like Stringer's behavior. I've heard he can be a nasty guy behind the scenes, but no one has ever said, this man is a sexual predator who has a hostile work environment. Women have worked for him for years and there have been no complaints. So you have an allegation. It cannot be corroborated, right? As you said, he said, she said, there's no way to corroborate it. I do think there is a bigger question. I don't have the answer for this, with how the left especially is going to reckon with these allegations going forward. Because my fear, to be frank, is if I were a political operative who was not a progressive or leftist, I were a moderate, conservative political operative, and I saw an ascendant left candidate. I'm not going to use Scott Stringer as an example because I think Cea's characterization is correct. He's kind of, became a left candidate in 2018 and has been an insider most of his career. But,
he's marking it.
Yes.
He's pulling a marquee.
He's definitely pulling a marquee. But let's say, a scenario where there's like a strong left candidate who's got a shot to win. Their candidate who is, very maybe, good, but also disruptive and could really change things. If I were a political operative on the opposite side, I would concoct a allegation out of thin air to destroy them. And I don't think this is happening here. But I just think this is something we may have to reckon with in the future because it's incredibly plausible and easy to pull off, especially when there are no longer any demands for corroboration of any kind, right? Usually, if you read like articles about Me Too, at least the person tells a friend at the time about what happened, right? That's usually the most basic bedrock we can use as well. Did they confide in a friend about this? We have with this allegation, which again, I do think could very well be true. We don't have any of that. And the question is, what do you do with it, right? The left establishment made their choice. Working Families Party, right? Politics is about politics. It's not about, not about these moral values here. They made a political calculation. It was better for their brands to withdraw than to stick with Scott, right?
Yeah, moreover, there's some hypocrisy here, right? To the point made, I think it's some reporting from The Intercept, when the Tariq accusations came out, Maya Wiley released, wrote an article saying that, you have to investigate the claims and give people benefit of the doubt and all this kind of stuff. But she's withdrawn, she's kind of condemned Stringer
That's
immediately
politics.
in this instance, right? Okay. And the Stringer
Got
campaign,
different interests.
I mean, right, and that it is what it is. But in terms of your point, Ross, about, whether or not there was a contemporaneous corroboration, did someone tell a friend at the time? That's something that Tara Reid actually had. And apparently Kim, the woman in this instance, did not. Stringer's campaign has, in fact, accused, no basis that I know of, Kim of having some relationship with Andrew Yang's campaign. There's all of this stuff swirling around, right?
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. You can finish.
Just of the response from the left, because I think the left sees itself as more rooted firmly in the values of, gender equality and believing women and wanting to right some of the historical wrongs, is quicker to come to a conclusion than people who are less ideologically rooted. And that ultimately makes us more vulnerable to anybody who would want to weaponize that against left movements.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Stringer, I would say, cost himself these endorsements by his very kind of, aggressive reaction. I think, he really attacked this woman. He said, she was tied to Andrew Yang. Really went very hardcore scorched earth against her, which I think was wrong. You should not impugn someone like that. I think the thing to do would just be say, I deny these allegations. They're wrong. Look at my record. Now I'm going to go talk about something else now. Ask me about transportation. I'm not taking any more questions. I respect her. I respect her view, but I think she's wrong and I didn't do these things, right? You deny and then you move on. Instead, he did this like multi-day cycle of like basically burn down Gene Kim. It was very like old school New York politics thing. It did not work. I think it could have worked 20 years ago, backfired horribly. And I think that's why like Julia Salazar, Biaggi, they all withdrew. Like this is not for me. This did not work. But to your point, I mean the weaponization, it is a threat. We haven't quite seen it yet, but it's something. Was
Alex Morse not seeing that?
That was, I would say that's a good point. That was probably the beginning of it. I would say we haven't seen it widely employed, but yes, the Alex Morse was an example of like a pretty clear weaponization of allegations. And so my fear is, right, again, if you're like a conservative political operative, a moderate, I use the example like a Liz Smith, right? Like I would be, this is what you would do. Like, this is the playbook, right? Do it to Morse, find someone, have an allegation, maybe it's iffy, but if no longer we are demanding corroboration or evidence of any kind, then it does open up this space. I don't know what happened with Stringer. He very well could be guilty. He very well could be a sexual predator. But with Cuomo, we have very fresh allegations. These are women talking about behavior that happened last year. They confided in people.
Yeah,
there's
many
a lot
of them.
You can go on it. You can have an investigation.
There's a hot dog video.
Oh my God.
20 years ago, it's hard. It's hard. Like, how do you deal with these issues? I don't have the answer. I don't know if anyone does, but I do think the left in general really is going to have to start thinking hard about how do you handle situations like this in the future.
We do. Just like a different take on the politics of it, though. Like, the left was already going to rank Morales 1 and Stringer 2 and maybe Maya 3. And the question to me is, does any of these unendorsements mean that, like, how many people are going to rank now Morales 1, Maya 2, and then Stringer 3 because
what if they don't rank him 3?
Right.
What if they just leave it
that's
blank?
The question.
Yeah.
That's the question. Is the left going to rank him or not when they go into the voting booth? And I think some definitely won't, and like some probably still will, because there's nowhere else to go. And then the other thing is, like, a lot of Stringer's base isn't the left. Stringer's new base is the left, but like Stringer's old base is not the left. They're not abandoning him. Stringer's new base is the left, but they were already ranking Diane 1. So like, we're just like cornering, like, I'm not sure at the end of the day what impact this is going to have on Stringer's electability. And so we're just going to have to see. With ranked choice voting, I'm just actually not sure. I agree with the larger point. I agree with the larger point on, like, the left has to figure out what to do. But, like, I think Stringer's campaign is fine.
The politics, I would agree in that. I'm not convinced. I don't think this destroys his campaign. I think it's going to make it hard to ascend or break out. But yeah, I think his base is there. I think older kind of baby boomers and people like that are just less moved by Me Too stuff. Unfortunately, with like Cuomo, you're seeing this, a lot of older Democrats are still sticking with him. And I think Stringer is like such a less severe version of kind of like the 12 Cuomo allegations that, yeah, Stringer's people are going to stick with him. I think it's like a very bad news cycle. I think it hurts his ability to grow and kind of be the alternative to Yang and Eric Adams. But, we'll see how the polls come out on this, but he's probably just going to float where he is. People on the Upper West Side, traditional, just kind of like older Democrats, like left of center, they'll go, oh, we know Scott, we like Scott. I think it's why it's like Jerry Nadler didn't withdraw his endorsement of Stringer. The UFT did not withdraw it either. So,
but that to me, that's proof. That's proof of concept of what those endorsements actually mean. Biden's endorsement base didn't withdraw over Tara Reade. It's not like unions, Democratic Party operatives, MSNBC stopped cheering Biden over Bernie just because those allegations came out. Cuomo's genuine base, for the most part, has stuck with him. Alex Morse, his base was with this progressive movement and like this kind of like Jacobin left, and they withdrew. And so the question is, the left already has limited power. And whether or not, if you really think, like this is what Biden said around Tara Reade too, if you think I did it, you shouldn't vote for me. If anyone thinks that he really did it, then arguably they shouldn't be ranking him third. They shouldn't be ranking him at all. And so if we really believe what we say in terms of our morals and values, then this should be consequential for him, even in a ranked choice voting contest. That's all.
Yeah, it's just hard to say how like voters are going to really react to this. Because I do think, yes, the younger left will absolutely, if they were going to put him on the ballot, they may just drop him now totally and just stick with Morales. I think with this race too, again, people, as you know, like don't fit into neat ideological boxes. I mean, you're going to have ballots with Morales and Andrew Yang on them.
Yeah, 100%.
You may have a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
The WFP ballot, like the dream, like what it was the Stringer, Morales, Wiley ballot. Like you may not see many of those at all. That's kind of Yang's strength. He's going to be showing up on a lot of ballots. Like that's RCV, I think is just going to help him because it's like, there's no neighborhood where at this point, like someone's not going to be throwing Andrew Yang on their ballot.